All right, let's dive into Phuket property taxes. If you're thinking about Phuket real estate, this is for you. We'll cover smart investments, legal stuff, and keeping more money in your pocket.
Yeah, and it's not just about the what of property taxes, it's the why that's interesting. These taxes show how Phuket's real estate market works, where it's going, and how investors can win.
Okay, we've got articles, research, case studies, even insider tips. We're going to give you the best info. Get ready for some surprises. Like, did you know that small tax changes can make a big difference, especially for luxury villas?
Yeah, and those are the things that trip people up. So let's start with the basics. What are property taxes in Phuket?
For someone thinking about owning property in Phuket, what's the bottom line?
It's like this. You're buying into a community. Property taxes keep the community running well. Roads, schools, services, everything. It's part of being in this tropical paradise.
So it's not just the government taking money, it's helping the island.
Exactly. But there are some misconceptions. Some think property taxes are a fixed rate. Others think they're optional.
Oh, that's not good.
No kidding. Phuket property taxes are dynamic. They change based on your property's value, rules, and type. And they're definitely not optional. If you own property in Phuket, you pay taxes.
Okay, no avoiding taxes. I got it. So what types of property taxes are there in Phuket?
Three main ones: land and building tax, withholding tax, and specific business tax. Land and building tax is the most common. It's based on the value of your land and buildings.
Okay, that makes sense. But you said there were different rates for different property
Right.
types.
Residential properties have lower rates, sometimes as low as 0.3% of the value. But commercial properties can be up to 1.2%.
So the type of property you buy affects your taxes. Makes sense. Now, what about withholding tax? When do you pay that?
When you sell a property, it's usually 1% of the sale price or the assessed value, whichever's higher. This is where luxury villas come in. Imagine selling one for 10 million baht. That's 100,000 baht in tax.
Wow, that adds up.
Yeah, you need to include that when you calculate your profit.
All right, so that's land and building tax and withholding tax. What about specific business tax? Do all Phuket property owners need to worry about that?
No, not really. It mostly applies to businesses in real estate, like developers or agencies. It's 3.3% of the sale price or appraised value, whichever's higher.
So unless you're becoming a Phuket property tycoon, you probably won't see this tax.
You got it. But it's good to know about, even if you're buying for personal use.
Knowledge is power, especially of taxes. So how are these taxes calculated? It doesn't seem like it's just a simple percentage.
You're right. The assessed value of your property is the main part, but location matters too. Properties in popular areas like beachfront or near schools will have higher taxes. And the type of property, residential or commercial, is important too.
So it's not just plugging a number into a calculator. There's a whole process.
Exactly. The local authorities assess property values. They look at market trends and recent sales. They consider the size, age, construction quality, and features. They're figuring out your property's worth.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Say you want a residential property in a decent location worth 5 million baht. The tax rate might be 0.3%. Your annual property tax would be 15,000 baht.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about a luxurious five-bedroom pool villa near BISP? What would the taxes be like for that?
Now we're talking. That villa would have much higher taxes. Location, size, and amenities all matter.
So understanding these calculations is important, especially for high-end properties. You don't want to be surprised by a big tax bill after you buy your dream villa.
Exactly. Being informed can help you make a good decision.
All right, we've talked about the types of taxes and how they're calculated, but everyone loves a discount. What about exemptions and reductions? How can you save money in Phuket?
You're in luck. Phuket has a few ways to get tax relief. If you're buying your primary residence, you might get a big reduction. There are also options for seniors and people with disabilities. And sometimes, if your property helps the community, you might get a break.
So it's not just about you, it's about how your investment helps Phuket. I like that. What's the process for getting a tax reduction? Is it complicated?
It's pretty straightforward. You'll need documents like proof of ownership and ID, then submit an application to the local tax office. They'll review it and let you know.
We heard about a beachfront villa owner who got a big tax reduction. They used the savings to improve their property. It shows how these exemptions can make a difference.
That's a great example. It shows how tax breaks can benefit homeowners and Phuket.
Okay, now for the less fun stuff. Deadlines. What happens if you forget to pay your property taxes on time? What are the consequences in Phuket?
Don't wait to pay your taxes. Phuket has annual deadlines, usually at the end of March. If you miss the deadline, There are problems.
Like what? Tell us the bad news.
Okay, first, there are late fees. It's a percentage of the unpaid tax, so it gets bigger the longer you wait. Then there are interest charges, which can add up. And if you keep ignoring the bills, the local authorities might take action. They might sue you to get the money.
That doesn't sound good.
It's not. But there are easy ways to avoid this. Set reminders, budget for taxes, talk to a tax expert. Do these things to stay on the right side of the law.
It's better to be safe than sorry. Our research found a new modern pool villa that costs over 20 million bacchus.
Imagine the penalties on a property like that.
I wouldn't want to be in that situation. It shows how important it is to pay your taxes on time, especially for expensive properties. Planning can save you a lot of trouble.
Okay, so the government is serious about taxes. But what about their role in all of this? What are their responsibilities?
They have a few roles. They're like the referees of property taxes. They assess values to make sure everyone pays fairly. They collect the taxes to keep the island running. And they enforce the rules.
Sounds like a big job.
It is. Property owners and the government need to work together. Owners need to provide documents, go to meetings, and ask questions.
So communication is important.
Yes, it is. But the government faces challenges too.
Like what?
They don't always have enough resources. Sometimes property owners don't want to pay, and the rules can be confusing and lead to arguments.
So it's a balancing act.
It is. But remember, property taxes affect everyone's quality of life in Phuket. They pay for roads, parks, and services. So it's not just about collecting money, it's about investing in the island.
Exactly. And that leads to the next question. How do property taxes affect the real estate market?
This is important. How do taxes affect buyers, sellers, and investors?
They're a big factor. Higher taxes mean higher costs for owners. That can lead to higher property prices. This makes it harder for new buyers to enter the market. It can even discourage investors.
We thought that some investors are hesitant about Phuket because of rising taxes.
I'm not surprised. Investors want the best return on their money. Higher taxes make them think twice.
So it's not just about the cost of owning property. It's about how attractive Phuket is for investment.
Exactly. They look at market stability, government incentives, and ease of doing business.
What are buyers doing because of these tax changes?
We're seeing people move to areas with lower taxes.
Mm.
As taxes rise, buyers look for cheaper places. This increases demand and prices in those areas. Sellers in higher tax areas might need to lower their prices.
It's like a seesaw.
Exactly. Some investors are also diversifying. They're looking beyond Phuket. They want better tax conditions.
So it's about adapting. Okay, it's clear that understanding property taxes is important in Phuket. It affects everyone. What about the legal side of things? What are the main laws about property taxes in Phuket?
The two main laws are the Land and Building Tax Act and the Specific Business Tax Act. These laws explain how property taxes are assessed, collected, and enforced.
What about legal advice? Should property owners get professional help?
I think it's essential, especially for complex transactions or if you're not comfortable with the legal details. A lawyer can help you understand the law and make sure you're doing things right.
It's worth it for peace of mind.
Exactly. And what about if there's a disagreement about property taxes?
What can property owners do?
They can file a complaint with the local government. Often you can solve problems by talking. If that doesn't work, you can try mediation. A neutral person helps you find a solution. And if nothing else works, you can go to court.
So there's a system to make things fair.
Yes. Property owners need to know their rights.
Our research mentioned a 3-bedroom pool villa in Bang Tao. How did the legal aspects of property taxes apply to that?
That's the kind of property many people want in Phuket. It shows why understanding the law is important even before you buy. Knowing about taxes, exemptions, and your rights can prevent problems.
Okay, we've talked about the legal side. Now let's compare Phuket's property taxes to other places. How do they compare to Bangkok or Singapore?
That's a good question. One of Phuket's advantages is that its property taxes are lower than in big cities.
That's good news. Can you give us some examples?
In Phuket, property tax rates are usually between 0.3% and 0.5% of the value. In Bangkok, it's between 0.3% and 1.2%, depending on the property. And in Singapore, it can be as high as 20% for expensive properties.
That's a big difference. Phuket looks good.
It does, but it's not just about the numbers. It's about the reasons behind them. Phuket wants to encourage investment and growth. Other places might have different priorities.
So it's about understanding the goals. What are the main policy differences between Phuket and other places?
Phuket has generous exemptions, especially for primary residences and some developments. You might not find those in other places. Assessments are also less frequent in Phuket. They happen every 5 years, while some places do them annually. And Phuket is more flexible about payments. They have more options and are more lenient than places with strict deadlines.
So a more relaxed approach.
Yes, but there's always room for improvement.
Are there any lessons Phuket can learn from other places?
Of course, Phuket could be more transparent about assessments. This would build trust with property owners. They could also incentivize sustainable development. This would attract environmentally conscious investors. And they could improve communication, make it easier for owners to understand their obligations.
So make things easier for everyone. It's about making a system that works for the government and property owners. Our research showed that Phuket's low taxes make it popular with investors, especially those looking for luxury villas. It seems like Phuket has a good balance, a beautiful place with good taxes.
That's right. That's why Phuket is so popular for high-end real estate.
Okay, so we've looked at the current situation. What about the future? What might change?
Phuket is always changing, and its tax policies will change too. As the island grows and attracts more investment, we might see some changes.
Like what?
Tax rates might change. As Phuket develops, especially in areas with luxury villas, the government might adjust the rates.
So some owners might pay more taxes.
Maybe, especially in prime locations.
Yeah.
But those increases are usually to get more money to help Phuket develop, to improve infrastructure, services, and make the island better.
So it's about investing in the future.
Exactly. They might also try new tax models, like progressive tax rates where expensive properties pay more. This would make the system fairer.
So it's about fairness and getting enough money.
Exactly. And don't forget about economic factors. Tourism, foreign investment, and global economics will all affect property taxes. For example, more tourism will increase property values, and that might lead to higher taxes.
It's hard to predict the future.
It is. That's why it's important to stay informed and be flexible.
Okay, so rates might change, new models might be tried, and economics will play a role. Anything else?
Technology? It's changing everything, including property taxes.
Tell me more.
We're seeing more online platforms and digital tools. These tools make things easier, like assessments, payments, record keeping, and communication.
That sounds good.
It is. It's more convenient, and it can make things more accurate. This helps both property owners and the government.
So it's more efficient, transparent, and accurate. What's the downside?
You'll need to learn how to use the new tools, but the benefits are worth it.
Okay, so there will be a learning curve.
Yes, but the government is trying to make it easy.
That's good.
They want to create a system that works for everyone.
Okay, so we've talked about rates, models, economics, and technology. It's clear that things are changing. What can our listeners do to manage their taxes well?
Stay informed. Pay attention to the government, industry news, and do your research. The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
So be proactive.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help. A tax consultant can give you personal advice.
It's good to have an expert.
It is.
What else can property owners do?
Keep good records. Organize all your documents, receipts, assessments, correspondence, everything.
So create a tax file.
Exactly. And use technology. Use accounting software or spreadsheets to track your income, expenses, and deductions.
Be organized and use technology.
Exactly. And be proactive. Don't wait until the last minute. Stay on top of deadlines and pay on time.
So plan ahead.
Right. A little effort now can save you a lot of trouble later.
Okay, so stay informed, get advice, keep records, use technology, and be proactive. That sounds like a good plan.
It is. It's about making owning property in Phuket easier.
Great. Now, one last question. How do you think the ideal Phuket property investor will change in the future?
That's a great question. I think they'll need to be adaptable, informed, and strategic. They'll need to stay up to date, be willing to change, and see tax planning as important.
So it's not just about money, it's about knowledge and planning.
Exactly. Smart investors will see taxes as a way to improve their investments.
Well said. Okay, so we've talked about Phuket's property taxes.
Yes.
But now let's get practical. In the next part, we'll share tips and tricks to help you manage your taxes.
We'll give you the secrets to a stress-free tax experience.
This is where it gets real.
Don't miss it. It's interesting how these taxes are like a mirror of Phuket's real estate market.
Yeah, they show the growth, challenges, and potential.
Exactly. And our investors probably wondering how this affects them.
Right. They're picturing themselves relaxing by the pool, but also worrying about taxes.
Well, remember that Phuket's system is pretty good, especially compared to other places. It's about perspective and planning.
Okay, so Phuket's looking good. But we mentioned some changes coming. What might we see in the future?
As Phuket grows, the taxes will probably change too. They need to keep up with the island's development.
Okay, but what specifically?
Tax rates might change. In areas with lots of development, especially luxury villas, the government might increase taxes.
So some people might pay more.
It's possible, especially in the best locations. But those increases are usually to improve the island. Infrastructure, services, making things better.
So it's about investing in Phuket.
Exactly. And they might try new ways to calculate taxes, like progressive rates where expensive properties pay more, to make it fairer.
So fairness and getting enough money.
Right. And remember that things like tourism and the global economy can also affect taxes. If tourism does well, property values go up, and that might lead to higher taxes.
It's hard to predict.
It is. Stay informed and be ready to adapt.
Okay, so rates, new calculations, and the economy are all factors. Anything else?
Technology. It's changing how we do taxes too.
Tell me more.
There are more online platforms and digital tools now. They make it easier to assess, pay, keep records, and talk to the government.
That sounds convenient.
It is. And it can also make things more accurate. So it's good for everyone.
More efficient, transparent, and accurate. Are there any downsides?
You'll need to learn how to use the new systems. But it's not that hard.
So a little learning is needed.
Yes, but the government is helping people learn.
That's good.
They want everyone to be able to use the new system.
Okay, so we have rates, calculations, economics, and technology. What should our listeners do to manage all of this?
Stay informed. Know what's happening in Phuket. Follow the government, news, and research.
Be proactive.
Yes, and don't be afraid to get professional help. A tax consultant can give you advice.
Good idea.
It's worth it for something as important as taxes.
What about specific things people can do themselves?
Keep good records. Have a system for all your tax documents.
That's a tax file.
Right. And use technology to help you. Accounting software or even spreadsheets can make things easier.
So be organized and use technology.
Yes. And don't wait until the last minute. Do things on time to avoid problems.
So plan ahead.
Exactly. A little effort now can save you a lot of trouble later.
Okay, so stay informed, get advice, keep records, use technology, and plan ahead.
That's a great summary.
Now, for our investor who's dreaming of Phuket, what's the most important thing they should know?
Don't let taxes scare you away from Phuket. With the right knowledge and planning, you can manage them easily.
So be prepared.
Yes. If you know what you're doing, you can be successful with property in Phuket.
Great. Okay, we've looked at the present and the future of Phuket property taxes. Now let's get even more practical. In the next part, we'll give you specific tips and tricks.
We'll help you manage your taxes without stress.
This is where it gets really useful.
Don't miss it.
All right, welcome back. We've covered a lot about Phuket property taxes and even looked at what the future might hold. Now it's time to get practical.
Yeah, let's give you the tools to handle those taxes and make sure it's a smooth process.
This is like our Phuket tax masterclass.
We've got insider tips to save you money, time, and stress.
Okay, let's start with record keeping, the foundation of any good tax strategy. What are the important things to remember about keeping tax records, especially in a market like Phuket?
Organization is the most important. Create a system for all your property tax documents. Receipts, assessments, anything from the government, payment confirmations, everything needs a designated spot. A physical folder or a digital system, whatever works for you.
That makes sense, a place for everything. But with all those papers and digital files, it's easy to lose track. How can people stay organized?
Technology is your friend. Accounting software can be really helpful, especially if you have multiple properties. But even spreadsheets can work to keep track of income, expenses, and deductions. Find a system you like and use it consistently.
Don't just set it up and forget about it.
Right. Keep it updated. Put information in regularly, whether it's a new receipt or an assessment. That will save you a lot of time later.
Nobody wants to be digging through piles of paper at the last minute, so organization and technology are important. But when should someone call in a professional? When do you need a tax expert to help with the more difficult parts of Phuket's taxes?
If you have a complex transaction, like a really expensive property or a complicated ownership situation, get a professional's advice. Tax consultants can really help you understand the law and make sure you're not paying more than you have to.
So having an expert can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And a good accountant can also help a lot. They make sure your records are perfect, your numbers are right, and everything is filed on time.
Okay, so tax consultants for strategy and accountants for the numbers. Got it. Now let's talk about strategy. What can people do to maybe reduce their taxes in Phuket? Are there legal ways to pay less?
Definitely, there are legal ways. The first step is to know the rules. Do your research and find out if you qualify for any exemptions or reductions.
Like we talked about before, owning your main home or helping the community.
Exactly. Those can really lower your taxes. You can also see if any property improvements might give you tax benefits. For example, making your home more energy efficient or accessible can sometimes get you tax breaks.
So think about the long term and how improvements can lower your taxes.
That's right. And if you're thinking about renting out your property, look into the taxes for short-term and long-term rentals. There might be a better option for your situation.
Make smart choices that work for you and your taxes.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Okay, so we've talked about records, getting help, and lowering your taxes. Any other advice for our listeners?
Don't be afraid to talk to the government if you have questions. They want to help, and communication can prevent problems later on.
So stay in touch and don't avoid your problems.
Right. And remember that things are always changing. Phuket's taxes are dynamic, so stay updated and be ready to change your plans if you need to.
Stay flexible.
Exactly. And the last thing is your attitude. Don't get stressed about taxes. Think of them as part of your investment, a challenge to learn from and overcome.
So don't worry too much. Use this as a chance to learn and reach your goals in Phuket.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, there you have it. We've gone deep into Phuket property taxes with expert advice and practical tips. Hopefully you're feeling more confident now.
Remember, knowledge and preparation are key. If you do those things, you can succeed with property in Phuket.
That's all for today's episode, but we'll be back with a special look at luxury villas in Phuket.
We'll cover everything about buying, managing, and even renting out those amazing properties. We'll share tips and tricks to help you make the most of your villa investment.
If you've ever dreamed of owning a piece of paradise in Phuket, this is the episode for you.
Until then, good luck with your investments and keep learning.